the Lounge with Travefy Academy, where we get to hear from travel industry voices and experts to learn more about their story and what they see on the horizon for travel professionals. I'm Stephanie Grice, joined by David Chait.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here.
And today our guest is Jeff Pawid, who is an industry veteran having an active role in the different facets of the travel industry, working with travel advisors in the US and Canada. And we're going to get to learn so much more about him. But welcome to the lounge, Jeff, and thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. It's great to be part of your lovely podcast show. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
we're glad you're here.
Yeah. And to start us off here, Jeff, can you give us a quick background about yourself and just tell us about your experience in the travel industry?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually came into the travel industry as a corporate sales. I worked for a hotel company called Carlson, which is now they call themselves the Radisson Hotel Group. So I was part of the global sales team handling all conferences. So basically MICE. I handled Europe, Asia, and the Pacific at that point. And then from there, I fell in love with the different aspects of it. And I switched to the leisure side, dealing with travel. I was a travel advisor dealing with, Joe Smith going to Aruba or Mr. and Mrs. Johnson going to Europe. And then from there, somebody told me like, hey, I think you'll be a good supplier. And when that opportunity came about, I took it, and I've been a supplier rep ever since.
That's awesome.
Very cool. I mean, you've definitely seen it all. And I will say, as someone, Jeff is someone that Stephanie, myself, and the rest of the Travefy team have known for years in a lot of these different roles, which is just, a fun guy, great personality.
Well, it takes one to know one, right? So I cannot be fun without you guys being fun. So
there we go. But, it's been a very cool journey to see. And with that, as you noted, you've worked on all sides of the industry, which many people do, but for many people, they don't. Folks are solidly a travel agent, advisor, or consultant, or solidly on the supplier side. And you've really bridged both at different points in your career. So, just out of curiosity, what are some of the challenges or commonalities that you've seen being on both sides, an advisor and a supplier?
Yeah. Now, at least when you're dealing as a supplier or a travel advisor, the end client is always the main priority. You always want to make sure that you're doing right by them in any way possible. One of the biggest challenges definitely is Mother Nature. Sometimes your Mother Nature is your best friend, and sometimes they are your worst enemy. It's a lot of things that you cannot control with them. You cannot, as much as you want them to go on their vacation, but if Mother Nature is not cooperating with a flight delay or a flight cancellation, you cannot do anything about it. But at the same time, you just want to make sure that your client is taken care of as a travel advisor as well as a supplier representative.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And then, obviously that, both being, as you mentioned, kind of on the same team where it's about the traveler, it's about the end client. I feel like a lot of that comes down to relationships. And so, how important is that, supplier and advisor relationship? And what are some, either actionable advice for suppliers or actionable advice for advisors on what they can do to foster that relationship?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a big thing to have a relationship with your supplier. But in any relationship, the key is open communication, right? Regardless if you're on the travel advisor side or on the supplier side, because if you're a supplier, you just want to make sure that the product knowledge for your client is there. I mean, for your travel advisor is there, because you want to be in the forefront. When they think of a product, they always think about you right away. And then we're old school in the travel industry. We still use cell phones. Yes, we do email, but if there's a situation that comes about, the phone call is always the number one thing. So whether it is a small thing or a huge situation, a travel advisor will always give a call. So as a supplier, you want to make sure that you pick up the phone and be available for them and be able to answer their questions. And even if you don't have the answers right away, just give them a presence of mind, as if like, hey, I'm looking at this for you. I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and just give them updates in terms of like, hey, you're still looking into this. Get back to you as soon as possible. Now, from the travel advisor side, you just want to make sure that when a supplier comes into your office, you just give them a few minutes of your time. That's a that goes a long way. That you saying that, or even when there's like a potential client that you're going to have, just give that potential client and tell your rep a heads up about them, and that definitely goes a long way as well. Meaning that as a rep, they know that a travel advisor is giving that product to the client, to the end client, or to the potential client. So that helps. A little thing helps, but again, communication is key.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And Jeff, I always like asking what are the favorite parts of jobs. What would you say
Yeah.
is your favorite part of being on the supplier side and working with agents and advisors?
Yes. No. I was lucky where, as a supplier, most of my career, I had a territory of the U.S. and Canada. So I get to visit places that I would never think of traveling on my own, right? Um, and then meeting different advisors from different parts of the two countries and getting to know their stories, how they got started with the travel industry, or what made them switch from their old career to getting again into the travel industry is always fascinating to me, because I do have my own story how I got into industry, but I also want to learn how other people have gotten into it.
Well, we want to hear that. Let's
Yeah.
put a pin in this.
Oh, here we go.
How did you find yourself in travel?
By accident, believe it or not, actually. I was an economics and communications major at Rutgers, so I wanted to be in marketing. I wanted to be, or advertising. I wanted to be Don Draper, making commercials
Yes.
and whatnot. And then um, my mom and my former boss had a mutual friend, and she was like, "Hey, I need somebody to be a sales coordinator for 3 months as a temp, because I was going to cover somebody on maternity leave." And then as soon as I got it, maybe a week, it took me a week to fall in love with it, or re-fall in love with it, because when I was a kid, my mom would always take me to her conferences, to her work conferences. She would go and speak at different conferences and conventions, and she would bring me. They would hire a babysitter on wherever city we were at, so they could take care of me. I would be able, I'm hanging out at the pool or the beach while my mom is teaching, and then she would take care of me at night. And I've always had that when I was a kid, and that I just found the love again of travel as soon as I got back into it after college.
That's
Very cool. And so what did, I think helpful for everyone in in
Yeah.
in the in the audience and things. So you're obviously you came from a family that was already in travel. What did your mom do?
My mom was an HR trainer, actually.
Okay.
So um, she worked in a different capacity. At one point, she was working for the Department of Health. At one point, also, she was working for AIG.
But
So
always on the road to conferences and
ish,
things and
yes.
yeah.
So, yep. So I was always with her. Whenever she can bring me with her, I am on a bag. I would, or when you're a kid, when your parents are leaving, you want to put yourself in like the suitcase, and I think I was able to finagle my way into that as soon as little by little. So she brought me in, which was great.
This is all making so much sense now that you've been doing conferences since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
Been
Yeah, you're right.
walking the
Yeah.
floor as a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
grabbing
Yes.
what were they giving out before USB keys?
I,
Whatever the old swag was.
a lot of pens. Pens will never go out of style.
Cool. No, that's fun hearing your journey. But I guess back to what Stephanie was asking about. Favorite part of supplier side and working with agents and advisors.
Yeah, with travel advisors, one of the biggest things I love being a part of it was learning and like meeting new people again. Like I don't know if you could tell, like I'm a very social, you guys know this, I'm a very social person. I love thinking or meeting people regardless of where they're from and whatnot. 'Cause I love the stories, the story aspect. As a travel advisor, wait, what was the question? I forgot now. Like I started rambling on.
uh, go for it, Semi.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, your favorite part of being on the supplier side. So yeah, you'd or working with agents and
Oh yeah.
advisors.
Yep,
Yep.
yep, yep, yep. So working with agents and advisors, I love, getting to know the stories of different advisors from the different parts of the country and seeing the different dynamics. Being a travel advisor from the south is a little bit different from being a travel advisor up in the northeast to the northwest to up in Canada. So that's always fascinating, the different dynamics of having to talk to them or how the different scenarios come about.
That's true. That makes
Very
sense.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so bringing us back to today and
Yep.
the, unfortunate environment we're in, I think for all of us in the industry, there is no one untouched by coronavirus. And, we've all unfortunately seen the challenges, on the
Hmm.
agent and advisor side. It was the frantic cancellations and rebookings and credits and whatnot of, March, April, May. And then now the slow period where, due to bans, due to concerns, et cetera, there isn't much travel being booked. We have seen some bright pockets and spots, which we hope
Yep.
are continued trends, but it's a challenging period. And I know suppliers are seeing and feeling that too, where from an inventory
Hmm.
transaction standpoint, volumes are down significant. Now, the one thing that, and this is my own personal vantage point, is I do see, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
The question is, how long a tunnel is it? But there does come a point in which treatments are suitable such that bans will be lifted, and that people will have the comfort to travel, and travel will be back and back in a big way. Having said all of that, when big things happen, there are some forever changes. And so, I'm curious from your standpoint that, when all is said and done, and this unfortunate, difficult period is behind us, what are some of the changes you see on the supplier side moving forward, that might be here to stay due to COVID?
Yeah. No, there's definitely, technology has accelerated things because of the pandemic in terms of how we view travel. There's definitely going to be less human interaction or less human contact from how we board the plane to how we get into a hotel or a ship. There's going to be less, when we check in, there might not be a person there across the table anymore, where we just have to use our phone, right? So a lot of that comes into play. Um, there's going to be a lot more demand in terms of more open space. There not might be a demand for multi-rooms, hotels, like large hotels that has a lot of rooms, or resorts. There's going to be a renewed interest in open space. There's going to be a renewed interest in environment or nature travel. I see those things happening as well as a trend right now already. As a supplier, it's going to be a lot of local tourism too. So instead of seeing things in, I live in New York City, and there might be a lot of more requests for things to be in New York City, whether it be just for a museum or like a staycation in one of the hotels. So that's a few things that I see definitely from the supplier side because of the pandemic.
Yeah, no, makes
Yeah.
sense. And then going to the other side of the equation,
Hmm.
so to speak, going back to the travel advisor experience, how do you think COVID will change the future of the travel advisor's role, either positive or negative, or just
Yeah.
different? How do you think things will be different for the travel advisor?
Yeah. No, with travel advisors, it's an always revolving position, right? Pre-COVID, travel advisors have now become like a travel concierge where they don't just book flights, hotels, and what have you. They now start booking restaurant reservations as well, giving them tips in terms of where to go, museums, concerts, any kind of events within that particular city that or place that a person is going to. And then the pandemic started, and it completely put a wall in terms of all travel. So now again, travel advisors have to adapt and readapt. um, I think there's going to be a lot more of messaging, right? Less human interaction, less face-to-face interaction. Number one, because a lot of the businesses has to close due to the pandemic, as well as stay-at-home quarantine. With that, again, technology is a great part where we have WhatsApp, we have Messenger, where a lot of people can book through the different places, as well as different technology platforms where you can see your itinerary, such as Shopify. So that really helps a lot of the lacking face-to-face interactions from there. Aside from that, with the travel, again, there's going to be a lot of renewed interest in the travel advisors because of the fact that they don't get lost in the shuffle. Like if you have a client that booked with a travel advisor, there is a lot of personalization in what you can do, as well as when things don't go where it's supposed to happen,
Yeah.
you have a travel advisor that can help you out rather than being on hold with an airline for 4 hours at one point, at the peak of this. So there's going to be a renewed interest with the public, and hopefully that stays that way.
Yeah,
With
I agree. I think the mayhem of March, April, and May, I think, was an advertisement
Mhm.
for the value of a travel advisor, the importance of duty of care, and the just need to have someone who has, whose job is to make sure you get from A to B and taking care of that stuff. I think it's I think it's a difficult period, but I think not only will the business that already existed come back, I think more and more people that for a variety of reasons may have been DIYers are
Yep,
going to go back to advisors.
I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, no, and that was another thing too. Travify. That we've heard that too, where we've had some new. There it is.
Oh, let
And
me hold up.
yeah,
Yep,
hold
yep,
it
there
there.
you go.
Hold it up. We've heard that too. So it's interesting to hear you say that as well, because I've been talking to a lot of people recently who are new to Travify because they needed to find something that's mobile friendly. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't really think about that. You don't want these hard copy things that you have to go to an office or have to mail it to the person and all that. So really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, like, yeah, with a less human contact, where some companies are not even accepting cash anymore, right? So
Wow, fun.
having a phone where the only person that really touches it is yours, so like having an app such as with Shopify definitely helps and gives that peace of mind for the client.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it'll be really interesting to see the changes that come out and everything moving, but there will be a great comeback that will be
Yes.
happening. I know like everyone is so ready now more than ever. People want to get out at this point.
Oh,
It's
right. Like look
yeah.
at Aruba. Aruba opened their borders, and a lot of Americans flocked to Aruba on the first week that they opened it for Americans. So that's just a
Like
great example for it.
yeah, exactly. Get me there. Yeah, and they're doing so much work too. I know, like Mexico's, there's taking huge precautions, and a
Yes,
lot of people feel more safe there than even just going to their grocery stores. And
I agree.
so yeah, so it works well. And so a question for you too, and this is becoming a common theme here is talking about
Mhm.
conferences. But you've been to so many, so we wanted to highlight. I know internally for the travel industry right now, our conference got completely changed this whole year,
Yep.
and so next year we might be very busy with those, and hopefully hopefully we are. But I just want to ask you though, what are some of your favorite conferences and in events that you like to go to, and if you have any crazy stories to share, please do share those with
Oh
me.
no. Well, you guys know, you guys have been in the
No
same
problem.
conference that I have, and we've actually hung out, together.
Yeah.
Like in terms of a favorite conference, I don't have a personal favorite. Like all of them are unique in different ways. Like each conferences have their own spin into something. Some conferences want to have that elaborate celebration of being there, right? Whereas some conferences want you to experience the city like you've never done before. So, which is makes it amazing at the same time. So, but one thing, first and foremost, a conference is a business trip, but it does not stop us from having fun. A, a conference is like a quasi pseudo kind of like a family reunion where we see friends and colleagues that we haven't seen in a long time, so we get to hang out with them and say hi and hang out. So that's always fun to do and fun to have. In terms of the story, like some of the crazy things, um, I love the fact that sometimes I am hanging out with, C-suites people from companies and other suppliers, and some of the younger or new travel advisors going to that conference always point at me. It's like, who is that guy? Why is that guy hanging out and having a good time with the president of such and such? And I see them, I talk to them, just like, hey, what's going on? Like, hi, how are you? My name is Jeff. And they're like, this is my first time here. I'm like, come on over. Yeah, come on. Hi, Jeff. This is blah, 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 and what. So it's always a good time to network and whatnot. I was sitting one time and I see a guy alone by himself. And I'm like, why is that person sitting alone? So I figured he was part of the conference. I started talking to him, started chatting. Hi, how are you? And little did I know that he was one of the most recognized person in the industry until um, up until he introduced me by his name. And mind you, I was still fairly new in the supplier side, so I knew people by name but not by person. So I
Yeah.
was like, whoa, yeah. And little, here I am just hanging out with him, having a good time. um Next thing you know, we became a preferred supplier with that particular company before the conference ended. So definitely my bosses were happy about that, and I
Yeah.
got a new friend.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think that speaks to you, but also the industry in general, which is,
Mhm.
I've worked in a number of industries, and in ours, there's not a lot of pretension.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Whether you are the most junior, the most senior, the biggest, longest term veteran, newest person, everyone is open. Everyone wants to chat. Everyone wants to communicate. Everyone wants to help, and it to the point that there's always exceptions, and folks that don't that have that pretension or things or whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it,
Yeah,
are glaring because it's such an open, dynamic industry.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of it, like what happens is we become friends as well, right? We not just become work colleagues, we become friends. A lot of my most active friends on Facebook in terms of who comments on anything that I post are
Yeah.
actually from the travel industry. So
Well, there you go.
I know, it's
Um,
awesome.
cool. Well, before we move to our special section, which
oh
I'll
no.
let I'll save Stephanie for the thing. Last question for you as someone who's been in the industry, done so much, as you mentioned, worked for a lot of great organizations and been on both sides of things. What comes next for you? I'm curious. Where do you see yourself in the industry? What part do you want to be in going forward?
I love being in the supplier side. I think that's where my heart belongs. As much as I love being a travel advisor, and sometimes I do miss it. And friends and family now think of me as the travel advisor in the whole entire group. Everybody still asks me how I can help them, and I'm more than happy to do so. And if you and I've had worked with that travel advisor, I know who to give them to in terms of specializing in Europe or the Caribbean. But I love being a supplier side. So hopefully, once borders start opening up and the demand for travel starts ramping again, that um, a company will come to me and we can have that same partnership as we had before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we know and we've seen great things, and we expect great things. So looking forward
Yeah.
to it.
Yep.
Oh, thank you. Well, you guys as well, and I look forward to seeing you guys, sometime in the near future. Hopefully face to face,
I
right?
Yeah.
know. I hope. Yeah. The next conference, whichever one it's going to be,
Yes.
whichever is the
Which
first big one back.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. We will see. All right. Are we ready for rapid fire questions?
All right,
Excited.
Dun, dun,
let's
dun,
do it.
dun.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Okay. I got to remember, I think there's 7. So there's 7. And if you need to pass, don't be afraid to do so. We can come back.
Okay,
So feel free. All right. Here we go. You ready for the first one?
let's do it.
All right. So what is your favorite road trip song?
I was gonna say Highway to Hell, but you know.
No.
No. We're encouraging
Now,
domestic travel here. Come on.
Yeah.
now, it's actually XO. XO, the cover by John Mayer, not the Beyonce,
Oh.
but the John Mayer version of it.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go listen to that after this.
Yeah.
Stephanie, your face just went from such excitement to just like deflated. Like,
Yeah.
You
oh,
mean
not Beyonce.
Queen Bee? And then
No.
John Mayer's cool too, though.
Yeah.
but-
Oh, wow.
I will go check that out. I bet that
All
is
right.
really amazing.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's a great answer. Okay. So the next one, what is your favorite travel movie?
Huh. Travel movie. Well,
Really loose definition here.
Yeah. Well, one is like there's a funny story about that. What is that book like with Julia Roberts? Love, Pray, Love.
Oh, Eat,
whatever.
Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love. Yes, that was actually I was having a hard time one time as a travel advisor, and I had to just watch a travel movie, so that came to me. And I was like, all right, let's watch it. And then it re-inspired me actually to be in the travel industry because, you know, after not having sales and then all of a sudden, like, why am I doing this? And then I accidentally watched that movie on TV. I was scrolling through channels. So that's always going to have like a special place in my travel career. So the universe, I guess, was giving me a sign. It's like, hey, you're in the right industry, so you should watch this movie, and re-inspired me to do so.
That is amazing. Yeah, that's a great movie. It's very inspiring. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay, so another question here is, what is your favorite destination that you've traveled to?
Aha. Well, there's two, right? There's two that comes into mind for me. One is Maui. There's something about Maui, the spirit, like the mana. You feel connected to the earth that makes me want to come back there over and over again. And then there's Paris. I love Paris for its grandiose things. You know, the things that you just see how everything was built up. It was one of the cities where they knew what the future could bring, and it withstood time for hundreds of years. So I always love those two places. Plus, I gotta give a shout out to my city, New York City. You know, the city that never sleeps. So
Yeah. Well, maybe that might be, well, I don't know if this would be the next answer, or the answer to the next one, but what do you think is the most underrated destination to visit?
um, domestically, I think New Orleans. Um, Everybody thinks of New Orleans as a party place, Mardi Gras, all that stuff. But there's so many things to do out there. I fell in love with it, just being lost in the culture of the city and how seeing all the houses, the streetcar, it brings you back at a time where everything is much simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good museums, the World War II Museum.
Oh,
and
exactly.
A lot going on.
Yeah,
And
I
don't
agree.
forget the tasty treat there. The
Ah,
beignets.
yes,
The
the
beignets, yeah.
beignets. You can never go
Yeah.
wrong. You can never go wrong with food in New Orleans. So yes.
No. No, that's a great one. And well, actually, so going into the next question is, what is the best meal you've ever had while traveling?
Oh, that's a tough one. Nothing comes into mind, but every time I go to a place, I love sampling whatever the local specialty is, whether it be steamed hamburgers in central Connecticut, right? Or, yes, steamed hamburgers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or like a loosey goosey from Minneapolis. So there's always different things. There's a theme here about hamburgers, if you could tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like like um sausages with andouille, like a crawfish hot dog with andouille sauce in New Orleans. So there's a lot of things. So there's definitely, I would love to sample different food from
Just want to
different.
eat like a local when wherever you are.
Yeah, exactly. If I see a tourist, I don't like it. I want to, if I go to a place that is just not a speaking English country and nobody can understand me in that particular place, then I'm in a good spot.
Yeah.
That means it's
It's
local, that
true.
means it's good, and everybody loves it. Like when I was younger, my dad taught me this, because he traveled a lot as well, where if you're going to a place, anything that is above street level is for tourists, and anything below on a basement level is more so for locals. So I'm like, that is good to know. That's a great
Nice.
advice.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that. That does seem true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. The next travels have to look for that.
Yeah, there you go. And then another one is if you see taxi drivers eating at a restaurant, that means the food is cheap and the food is good. So
I
those are
like it.
some of the
That's
things that I've
uh-huh.
learned from my parents, from my dad, from their travels.
That's awesome. Some great travel tips here.
Words of
Hmm.
I like
advice.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so the next one here, so we have two left. What is the last great book or article that you read?
Um, I'm rereading The Life of Pi.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so I'm rereading The Life of Pi. It's a great book. A lot of, you know, things that you can learn from, like from making sure that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Be finding things and being brave when there's nothing to be brave for. You're always scared, but like being with a tiger and whatnot. But society tells you that you're supposed to be afraid of things, but you shouldn't until you try
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
As well as John Maxwell's the seven irrefutable deals of a leadership. I forgot the name of the title, but yeah, it's a John Maxwell book. So it's about leadership. So I'm rereading that again, making sure that whenever my next opportunity comes, I'm ready for it. Like
You're
I've
ready.
learned
Yeah.
my lessons
Yeah.
from a
Be
previous job.
prepared.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So those
Yeah,
are the two
that's awesome.
books that I'm reading, or at least read recently.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so last one is what is the craziest thing that's ever happened to you while traveling?
Uh, there was one. I was in Arizona. I was actually with my aunt. Um, I we visited a family friend, and then we parked outside the house, street, and then we came out. It was okay. We were driving around the corner. The next thing you know, three police cars blocked our car.
What?
So we're like, oh no, what's going on? And they were all. Next thing you know, they drew their guns, and they were ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And mind you, my aunt and I are driving a suburban at that time, and they're like, roll down your window. We're like, what is going on? My aunt is freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? Driver's driver's license and registration, please. And we're like, what's going on, officer? And where did you come from? Like, we came from that house. And they were like, is that the address? I'm like, no, the address is this address. So like, how do you know that's the address? And we're like, because that's the address that we came out from. And they were like, you sure it's not this address? And we're like, yes, we are sure. We think we know where we came from, right? Like as a house. And they got our information, they put it through the system, and next thing you know, they came back, lowered their guns at that point, and they said that they were seeing the house right across from the house that we went to was a drug cartel's house in Arizona. So they were making sure that we were not part of the drug cartel.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
So I'm like, that's my aunt and I will forever be bonded by that story in terms of
Yeah.
travel.
That's,
Whoa.
yeah, that's intense.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, it's not just they have like, regular sidearms. They actually had the big guns out drawn on us. So because they thought that we were part, I guess, part of that family or part of that cartel. So
Whoa. That probably wins for the craziest travel story I've ever personally heard.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's always
I'm
going to
glad
have
that
that.
situation ended
Yeah.
well, and
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, Jeff, I think we
was
lost your
it?
sound.
Yeah, we lost your sound a little. Oh no,
No.
I
Well,
know.
well, you know what? The good thing was that was actually the last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
So,
stick around there, Jeff.
Yeah.
But oh wait, we can hear you now.
Oh, there we go. I'm here. Yes.
There we go.
there we
Technology,
go.
right?
Yes.
Technology. But anyway, that was the last, and crazy, definitely crazy story for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to wrap up, and thank you for super crazy. But I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Lounge with Travefy Academy, and thank you to our special guest Jeff for joining us today. We're really excited. Yeah, super great to chat with you and catch up. And for everyone listening, be sure to subscribe to our podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel for all of the latest episodes. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation today, and join us again. But for now, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next flight.